Hey, everybody, I'm Jane, and you're listening to the Medium Curious podcast, Sunday solo edition. I actually recorded this last weekend, and then I had some super exciting drama involving ice, a glass vase, and an emergency clinic, and a lot of blood. But I'm okay. Everything is okay. It didn't actually do too much harm, but I did get 24 stitches. All of that to say, this solo did not go out last Sunday, but here it is a week late, and here we go. So I have been having quite an adventure the last couple weeks because Sundance Film Festival is in town. And it's been kind of a wild ride because it's a cool event. And as a former / continued, I don't know what I am, filmmaker, I love seeing these films, and I especially love seeing filmmakers whose dreams are coming true. Some of them have had multiple, films in the festival, but some of them are like it's like watching the Olympics. Do you know what I mean? Like you're watching someone at the pinnacle, or at least at a primary moment. And so there's something very exhilarating about these Q&As after the films of like seeing these people who have just like gutted themselves for years and years and years to make something beautiful. And a bunch of us are there with popcorn in hand and a big cheering voice saying, you did it. So anyway, that's what's so powerful and so amazing about getting to sit in these audiences. And what I want to talk about today, as I've been sitting with this, is this idea of having a vision, because I've heard that multiple times this week about people who were having, had a vision and are holding that vision and they're just constantly walking toward that vision. And that is why the vision is realized. And I think about how many times like super cool ideas have come through and kind of wandered by or have shown up and been like, this is the thing. But unless I do like a sustained, active, constant attending to that vision, to that idea, it's never coming to earth. It's never going to be alive in a theater like these people managed to do. So it's just such mad respect. And I also feel like this is such a moment being, and it was also really wild being in these packed theaters with all these joyous people who are also scrolling the news, and we're seeing the continued horror show in Minnesota. And it's just like the word I kept using is like dissonance. It's like joy and despair and congratulations and oh my God. But this topic, and why I'm bringing you this topic now, is because there's a vision that we can hold not only for our personal projects and for our families, but for our nation and for our communities. And I believe that that is something that we can do very actively and very powerfully right now, is hold a vision. And so I wanted to bring you some thoughts and theories on how this works and why it's so powerful, and again, how to use it for good. So I just want to share a few stories too of how this has worked for me personally in my life and how it's just been an absolute trip. So, for example, when I was young, I had this wild vision. It was like a waking vision of a soulmate. And I was in an acting class, and it was like, for anyone who's had this experience, I was in like a black box theater, and it was kind of dim and dark. I don't know. Sometimes the exercises get really esoteric and annoying, but it was like we were wearing masks, and we were kind of like in dealing with our personal masks. And like, I mean, y'all know me. I'm as woo as they get, but sometimes I get annoyed. So anyway, we're doing this mask exercise, and I suddenly like see out of the corner of this weird mask that I'm wearing, like a wavering vision of this dude. And I was like, oh my God, who is this? And it's a super hot dude. And he's across like a little stream from me. So I look at him and I say, who are you? In my mind. And he says, I'm your soulmate. And I was like, oh, cool. Where are you and when are we meeting? Because that's exciting. A soulmate. Yay. And he sort of like wavered and missed it away. So that kind of haunted me, to say the least, as the years went on in my 20s. And at a certain point, I had this dream, a nighttime dream, where I met up with him. And he was under a sign that said Denver International Airport. And I was like, okay, what's up with that? And he's like, we're going to meet at the Denver International Airport. And then I was like impatient at that point, because I think I first saw him when I was 20, and I was probably 25 or 26 at this point. So I had been having kind of a hard time dating, because I was always like, you're not him. You're not him. Not him. Cute, handsome, not him. So it was sort of tricky in this sort of altered constant state of like, where is he? And that's not him, but I still need to go on dates. You know what I mean? So anyway, I asked him in the dream, I was like, when are we getting together? And he said, don't worry, it's going to happen. So anyway, I won't go into the full story because it's kind of wild and it's endless, but long story short, what wound up happening is I wound up meeting Handsome Joe Morgan at the Denver International Airport, y'all. I met my husband at the Denver International Airport after having all of these years and dreams of looking for him. But one thing I should add in the in between was that I decided to write a screenplay about it, because I was just like, I just need to figure this whole thing out. And what better way than to make a piece of art? So I wrote an entire screenplay, and it was called Searching for Patrick, a Cosmic Love Story. And in it, this character, who was essentially me, but was way hotter and had like long red hair and was a pianist and like all the cool shit I wished I was, skinny, long red hair, whatever, pianist. And anyway, so this character, and I wasn't writing it like from a properly. I wasn't writing it from an outline, and I hadn't, created all the index cards, and I hadn't put it through the story engine. I was just writing. Every day I would sit down for 2 hours and I would write. And at one point in my writing, another character appears, and she meets him on a plane, and his name is Scott. And he's like, and she, the writer, me, was like, I wonder if that's actually her soulmate, that this other guy is kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? It's almost like a false lead or something, you know what I mean? So anyway, I'm just writing the screenplay, because at this point I'd actually made a bet with this ex-boyfriend of mine, this really neat guy named John, and we decided that we really wanted to write a screenplay, and we gave each other a deadline, and we promised to pay each other $1,000 if we didn't get it done. So anyway, how am I doing with the long story short? Not very well. He and I were supposed to meet in about a month. So I'm writing and writing and writing. Here comes this dude on the plane. I'm like, oh my gosh, this might be him. And I'm still writing. And then I have to go on a trip, and I have to go out to New York. And I flew through Denver, because here's the thing. At the time I was doing all these jobs where I had to fly. And of course I'm going to fly through Denver, because my soulmate's apparently there. I fly through, and I'm sitting outside the gate, and I'm sitting on the floor with my back against one of those like moving sidewalk things. So it was like a glass wall. And I look over and I see this super handsome dude. And I'm like, that guy's so hot. And so I start writing about him in my journal. I decide that he's a cowboy poet and all these other fun things. So I like literally storyboard. I like drew little frames, and I storyboarded the scene where my character meets her soulmate in the airport. Cut to sitting on the plane. Here comes this handsome guy, same guy who I had also nicknamed Sandwich Guy, Sandwich Man, because he was eating a very big sandwich, very big sandwich. And he was losing against the sandwich. Like the sandwich was totally taking him down. So anyway, I was kind of laughing in my mind. I'm like, here comes Sandwich Man. I wonder where he's going to sit. Dude, y'all, he sat next to me. He sat next to me on the plane, and I was tripping. I was like, wow, I can't believe the super hot guy is sitting next to me. The first thing I said to my husband was, you got to climb over all my, because you know how when you sit down on a plane and you kind of nest, you like put all your stuff here and you put it in the little seat pocket and you get yourself all set. And then we thought that center seat was going to be like open, because the doors were about to close. And then Sandwich Boy. And so the first thing we did together was laugh, which has been a hallmark of our relationship and has probably saved us many times from breaking up. So long story long, apparently. And I bring it all up because it all began with a vision, and that kind of concept that I had as a writer, where I was like, maybe it was like this kind of false character, or this like, it was like a mirage. And I won't explain what happened in the screenplay to kind of resolve the whole thing, because it was actually really cool the way it downloaded. But I held that vision. I was convinced of it. I wrote the screenplay. Point is, I was serious about it. I was not letting up. And then eventually, a super beautiful man who people will often call Scott. It's a funny thing. We were in a yoga class not long after we met, and the teacher, whose name was Kevin, kept calling Joe Scott. And I was like, I know your name is not Joe, your name is Scott. But anyway, so there's all kinds of cool, like weird crossovers between reality and my like imagined reality. And that has continued throughout my life. And I have a lot of other stories of how I've had like this really clear vision and have had to suffer a lot of slings and arrows of outrageous fortune in order to get from what my vision was to the reality. And I want to bring you guys a quote from Shakti Gawain, who wrote Creative Visualization. And she wrote that like, I don't know, 30 years ago. It's a really great book on this topic. And it really kind of summarizes how I feel. So her quote is this: the more we trust and follow our intuition, the more our lives flow, the more we contribute to the evolution of the whole. And that kind of circles me back to my original premise, is that holding a vision for our nation and our communities right now is really important. And I'm just looking at the subtitle for her book. It's Use the Power of Your Imagination to Create What You Want in Your Life. And so that's the trick, right? Is even figuring out what we want. And of course, right now, it's a little bit, what we don't want. We don't want our citizens and our dear neighbors being harassed and murdered and the rest. Like, it's so insane. But I'm like, okay, but let's be really creative. Let's vision a community where everyone is treated equally and exalted for their creativity and for their precision in whatever way that they have been called to this earth, whether it's, being an accountant and being an amazing human who figures out how to handle numbers. I'm not that, unfortunately. That is like the opposite of me. So, what are my gifts? And that's, I think, the questions we all are asking. What are my gifts and how can I contribute to the evolution of the whole? So, another thing I wanted to share, most of you who've been listening are aware that I had to make a huge leap out of a really amazing career and co-ownership of a thriving business in order to get over into being your co-host on Medium Curious and being a medium and channeler and now animal communicator and now mentor in the space of intuition and all the things that I've slowly become over the last 3 years since I made the leap. But what I want to share is right before, or like the year and a half it took me to, God bless my business partner. He's so awesome, you guys. He's like an extraordinary human and I admire him and miss him. But it was very hard. So I had to let him know, hey, I need to move out of this business. Luckily, we had a contract in place to kind of facilitate that. But the process was really intense. And a lot of really hard things happened during that time, not just sort of like the negotiations and whatnot, but like in my personal life, really weird, hard things happened. And we had, and I believe he's still this character for my business partner. We had a fractional CFO guy who I also love, and I recently went on his podcast called Rev Think, and I'll put that in the notes because I share the whole story of leaving that company and how intense it was over there if you're interested. But, for any of you thinking about jumping out of your careers and jumping into a new one, it's not for the faint of heart. And that's my point, is that I had a vision. I knew that I was supposed to, I don't know, y'all. I knew I was supposed to like help widows. That was kind of like the main thing. You know how some mediums are really brilliant at bringing children through and helping bereaved mamas and dads with their terrifying losses. I'm a widow medium, I think, because the first time I brought through a wife to this sweet man who had lost his beloved, it was amazing to sit with him and watch his face and his whole countenance change because she came in and she told him some cool stuff. And I was like, oh my God, this is what I'm supposed to do with my life. It was like one of those defining moments, right? So two things are happening here, y'all. And then I'm going to string this all together in a meaningful way because I want to talk about the hero's journey. So like that was kind of almost like my initiation. And I'd had several initiations, plus I had my spirit guides kind of chattering to me in the background about how I needed to move on. But meanwhile, I loved my business. We had like these awesome employees who I adored. Like I said, I love my business partner. I love my clients. I love the work we were doing. We were making little films. It was super fun, super creative. It was rad, right? But meanwhile, I've got this like blah, 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 in the background in my mind, like, you're supposed to be somewhere else. And it was just so frustrating to be kind of pulled like that. But then I had that experience. I did that reading for that fellow. I saw that the massive shift in him, and I heard, and sort of like it kind of reverberated in my soul. I was like, "Oh my God, that's my calling. This is what I'm supposed to do." And then somewhere in that zone, I got the idea for this podcast. And then somewhere not long after that, I got to know the beautiful and amazing Sarah Rathke, who is my co conspirator here in the medium curious world. And so it just all started to travel in the hero's journey. There is a call to adventure. And I'm sure a lot of y'all are familiar with the hero's journey. It was popularized by Joseph Campbell in his book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. So it's an arc. It's a full arc where a hero goes on a quest or an adventure to achieve a goal, facing challenges, gaining insights, and ultimately going back home transformed. So that's the premise, right? And that's what at most all every story told through, whether it's in a piece of fiction, in a book, or if it's in a movie, especially Hollywood movies, this became like very much cemented in. So the hero's journey for me was this. I had the call to adventure. I refused the call a lot. And I even sat with my business partner and I was like, I don't want to do this, but I am doing this. And of course that was probably pretty confusing for him. But then came the tests. And that's my point, is that when you're holding a vision and when you're really sort of clear, pretty clear, almost clear that this is your vision, there are going to be tests. There are going to be hardcore, I like to joke about the flying monkeys and the Wizard of Oz, right? There are going to be enemies, tests. There's also going to be allies. And I had both in that period of my life. And, it was pretty neat because my business partner was both an ally and he wasn't an enemy, but we were like, trying to negotiate this really hard thing. So then there's the supreme ordeal that happens. And that was, it's all really interesting how it all played out. But I won't actually say what the supreme ordeal was, but just know that anytime we're doing something difficult or something important to us, we are going to deal with these kinds of obstacles, right? And I feel like we are in the supreme ordeal right now in our country, and that a lot of people, a lot of us have been visioning for something really beautiful. And I feel like that's why we're in this ordeal, is because, you know, this is a country made of immigrants. We all came from somewhere else, and in fact, we're all on stolen land. So it's like the darkness has now completely erupted. And so my thought is, of course, we're going to all do all the things that, to fight this in any way that we are, but we're also, in my opinion, invited to vision. And I want to share a quote by this amazing, good grief. We have the most amazing guest coming on in a few weeks. Her name is Mary Porter Kearns, and I'm going to give away one of the pieces from her episode as a teaser, because it's going to come on in, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. We'll figure out when we can get it out for you guys. But holy cow, she's incredible. She has a Substack called "The Flowers Are Speaking." I can't even say it without smiling. I love her Substack. She's a genius writer, and she's working on a book that's coming out in 27. But in the meantime, we all get her Substack and we get her brilliance. And she read to us this. We recorded her episode 2 days ago, and she read to us from her book. And I want to share it here because it completely applies to what we're talking about here. She's ridiculous. I love her. Okay, here we go. Mary Porter Kearns. Dreams and wishes matter and are more important than our logical minds because dreams can change our DNA. All beings on our planet, including dandelions, are continuously envisioning themselves into being. Our science historically has simply called them mutations, part of the prolonged process of evolution. Yet, new research in neuroscience and epigenetics shows that sustained imagination and emotional focus can reshape neural networks and influence patterns of gene expression. Our dreams then are not mere thoughts, they are biological signals that help direct how we grow and adapt. It's not only humans that can do this, all beings dream. Seeds and eggs hold the creative life force of generations to come, where new ways of life are forged into matter in our world, carrying the vision of our future selves. Okay, let's just have a minute of silence. Like, she's so incredible. Her writing just knocks me out. But also, that concept kind of blew my mind. Like, we are dreaming our future, we're constantly envisioning ourselves into being. So, if that's true, then don't you agree that we want to envision our new lives, envision our new nation, envision our new cradle of civilization where it's all based in mutual respect and kindness and love, and not all this that keeps happening? So it's interesting because in my course, currently the cohort is called Wonder House. And as y'all know, probably from my little ads, I'm currently enrolling for the next cohort that's called Source Studio. And this is what we were talking about, this kind of idea of visioning our future. It was early in the year and we were doing kind of vision boards and stuff. And it came into the room by this beautiful woman in our group who was like, hold on, how are we like envisioning new cars when like the world is burning? And it was such a beautiful moment for us all to sit with and, kind of calibrate how to move forward in that conversation. And we found our way, and, just all credit to the group. It was, but it's been really sitting with me for the last few weeks. Like, how do we do that? How do we calibrate the dark and the light? And I just read a post by Annie Lamont up on Facebook that was really great, because I guess someone kind of shamed her about her promoting her book right now, because it was like, how can you be promoting your book when this terrible thing is happening? And she's like, yeah, and I'm also, making breakfast for my grandson, and I'm also admiring the lily whites that are coming up. And, it's this really wild time of holding the dark and the light. But I guess, again, my point, my premise here is like holding the light is more critical than ever, and holding it in the way that you see it. So I was really happy to celebrate these filmmakers this week. I was so happy to see them winning and getting their moment of glory. And it really inspired me on some of the projects that I've set aside, including a memoir that I've been working on and some screenplays that have been, gathering dust. And it was just like, yeah, guys, let's just do it. Let's make something beautiful. And I'm gonna close it out today with another quote by Shakti Gawain, who I don't know, I love her downloads. I think that book is probably a download. And of course, I'll link it in the show notes. But actually, I'm going to give you two. So, trust is the key to transformation. When you trust yourself, you know how to live. And that's critical. This is such an important moment for us to move through our own so that we can trust ourselves and find how to know how to live, how to trust our intuition, how to be in alignment with our higher self. And yeah, obviously I talk about this a lot because this is what I'm teaching. And then here's another really great one. When we align with our highest vision, we naturally act in ways that support the greater good, which is very much aligned with the first quote. The more we contribute to the evolution of the whole. So trusting our intuition, trusting our truth, and stepping forward in a world that we are envisioning, that we are trusting is coming. And even though the news is battering and our hearts are breaking, we can vision this new world with the power of our imagination and that mutation of our genes, which is happening thanks to our imagination. So just as I close with those, I want to add some more resources. A visioning practice is not hard at all. It's literally using your imagination and sitting at the beginning, ending of your meditation. If you don't meditate, try it for 1 minute and try visioning for 1 minute. These are not huge engagements, y'all. And really look at the future and see something so beautiful, so gorgeous, welcoming you into its arms. And yes, the flying monkeys come, they're here. And I just, as a person who's made it through a couple of these crazy journeys from like, I know what's true, I know what I have to do, and I'm going to get there. I promise you, there are better days coming, and there's a beautiful world that we can make using our powerful little minds. with the help of the flowers, I have to say. And again, oh my God, you guys, wait till Mary Porter Kearns is coming out in a couple weeks. So, yeah, that's it. It's possible. We can do it. Just using your imagination, see what you want, whether it's a personal project or the nation in a evolved and magical state of beauty. Do you guys remember that book, Ecotopia? It's 1,000 years old. I think it was written in the early 70s or maybe even the 60s. It's so cool. It does envision a future where we have, at least places that are aligned to what we're talking about here. Anyway, dear ones, I do hope this feels helpful. Like I said, I'll link some of these resources in the chat. And I don't know how many of you are doing that, but 6:00 every day, a little alarm goes off on my phone and it says, pray for the nation. Well, 6:00 Mountain, which of course is 5:00 Pacific and 8:00 Eastern. There's a bunch of us who are praying. And that's what I do when my little alarm goes off. And I have this really pretty song that plays, and I pray and I know the truth about this nation and that there is hope and there is beauty and there's a bunch of really amazing humans. And shout out to Minnesota, just proving that over and over again. And the fine folks of Minneapolis who are just extraordinary to witness. But we're all doing it in all of our communities. And I know that we can find our way with a little bit of love and visioning. All right, beauties. Oh, I never did talk about that other filmmaker. I'll have to save that for another day, but I will share one tiny story. And I've been closing for 5 minutes, and I'm sorry. So I saw this film yesterday, and this talented man was just gorgeous. He's just such a badass. And he said that at NYU, his documentary film teacher said, "No one is going to watch a film about your family." And this dude's an immigrant. He's Puerto Rican, and he's obviously in a Puerto Rican family, and this is part of the fun of his film. It's just so glorious in how he told the story of his family. Anyway, but she pointed at him, "No one is going to watch a film about your family." And here we were at this like huge screening, and he's had this amazing run here at Sundance, and I'm really hoping he got distribution. I hope and pray he did. And I'll link just the info about his film, because he used all these different types of animation. He built little miniature sets to tell the story of his family. It's epic. It's so good. I'm getting chills just talking about it. But I just loved his story of like, it's almost like that documentary teacher did him a favor. Like, oh, they don't. No one wants to, And so meanwhile, he manifested it. He made it happen, and it was, of course, so perfect for right now of like this beautiful immigrant family finding so much love and solace in each other, and his creativity being this like profound expression of finding his way through the world. Oh, so good, y'all. So anyway, whatever that is for you, find it. What is the thing that wants to come out of you? How are you a dandelion dreaming yourself into an existence? Let's do this. Oh my gosh, I'm such a dork. Anyway, I hope this is helpful. I love you so big, and I can't wait to see you soon. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. And you know what I'm about to say, because y'all are psychic. Please rate, review, tell your friends, put this out there, help us, because we love you and we want to keep making this, and we could use your help. Okay. With all the love there is, see you soon. Bye.
Very Soul is our sponsor for Medium Curious. Jane and I are both Very Soul mediums.
Oh, yes, we are. Verysoul.com, y'all. Inspired by spirit, guided by love, and brought to life by mediums.